Now I'm going to show you how to make a brushed latex casting. Here we're using a silicone mould. Silicone doesn't need a release agent. We just brush it on the inside, straight onto the silicone, all the way around, making sure we've got an even coat. Once we've finished our first coat, we can then just give it a quick stipple before it dries, just to make sure we don't leave any pools of latex thinner, especially around the lips and chin and nose and eyes. Yeah, these are the trouble spots right here. Just make sure you give those another going over. Once you've gone over it and you're happy with it, it's a nice texture, there's no brush marks in it, we can then just leave that to dry. After an hour, half an hour maybe, just check that it's dry before you put another layer on. Yep, that's dry. You can usually tell because of the colour change. It goes a lot darker. Okay, with a clean brush again, stippling latex onto the surface. There we go, once we're happy with that, we can add a layer of gauze. Now this will stop it from stretching. If you want it to stretch, then we don't add gauze. We just leave it as raw latex. Okay. Now again, using the stippling action, we need to make sure we don't pull it too tight because we want it to go in all to the details. So we need it to go into the divots of the mouth and the nose and the eyes. So make sure you leave yourself a little bit of slack. Each layer overlaps the previous, so just make sure that you have a good consistency in terms of thickness of material. Especially important around the nose is to leave yourself plenty of slack in the fabric. Okay, last piece now. Let's press that on there. Of course the fabric itself will absorb a certain amount of latex, so we always need to put on, even though we brushed on layer first, we still need to put on a little bit more latex. As long as it's not pooling in the low points of the mould, it should be fine. Okay, that's about done. Right, wash your brush in water and then leave your mould to dry. Welcome back. Okay, we'll just check this dry. Yep, we can see the colour's changed. That's good. Alright, so we'll carefully peel this out. When you're peeling fresh latex from a mould, you need to be really careful not to let it stick to itself. To stop it sticking to itself, we use talcum powder, just regular talcum powder. As you can see, it retains all the surface detail of the mould, but it's very thin. Not stretchy, but very flexible, which is fantastic for making moulds. Now I'm going to show you how to make a dip mould. So dipping, as you may remember, rubber gloves, balloons, condoms, all things we use every day made by this method. But first, we need to remember we need a master. For this purpose, we're going to use a plaster master. It's important that we use plaster because plaster is absorbent. We need clean, dry plaster. Wet plaster won't work as well. Okay, so we'll dip that in first, take it out, and with a clean brush, just stipple the surface, just make sure we work off any air bubbles that might be clinging to the surface. Okay, we'll pop that back in now. Right, and then we'll leave that for anywhere between half an hour to an hour. Right, now it's been half an hour, so we should have built up a reasonable thickness of latex here. The way this works is that the dry plaster absorbs or pulls moisture from the latex, building up a thickness, or like a congeals on the surface of the plaster. Once we let that dry, that then builds up a thickness of latex called a skin. Now with every skin we need a jacket. So with this one, just so it's easy and quick, you're going to use some Modroc. You just dip that in some nice warm water, pull it out, wipe it off back, wipe it off the front, double it up, and then lay it on. This first layer is important because you need to make sure that the Modroc fits closely to the skin in order to support it thoroughly. So just make sure this first layer is down properly. Use the tips of your fingers, rub it into the surface just to make sure that it's thoroughly covered the surface of the latex. Don't let it touch the base or anywhere that isn't covered by latex, because as we know, plaster sticks to itself, so any plaster that we put on there is going to stick. So if we put on Modroc, which is plaster based, it has a tendency to stick to a plaster master. And then just check all around the base so we're sure that it's not going to stick, and if necessary just pinch a little ridge like that along the base all the way around the outside. This pinched ridge also adds a little bit of strength to the jacket. Alright, now after about 10 or 15 minutes, that should be dry. Now just work around it, put your fingers under the edge of the ridge and just gently prise it up. Thumbs in the centre. Once that's peeled off, you should see your skin underneath and the detail that it's captured. Now this mould is ready to use straight away now. With some materials we will need a release agent, but always consult your technician before you do this. Simple as that. That's a dip mould.